How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all long before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Boy, that death like the Amsterdam. When my accountant and minus my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in the salon with Dale said and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in, recorded a whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up and now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose and try the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for us all, I'm the one for the job. Most days, catching sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way. Yeah, the biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen. Had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. Had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. Static, too close, find your balance. Embed the revolution for their prohibition bandwidth. Blood trickle from the leaders he was planning. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Boy, that death like the Amsterdam. When my accountant and minus my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in the salon with Dale said and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in, recorded the whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up and now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose and try the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for us all, I'm the one for the job. Most days you get the sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way, yeah. The biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up.
He says it's echo on the mics.
Is it? Okay. Are we visible? I cannot tell. Getting used to this new media, folks. There we go.
There we go.
All right. I'm
right.
wondering, where are the people? Where we at? So, welcome, folks. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to Black Power Media, Luqman Nation in Black Power Media, where we break it down, chop it up. I'm Jackie Luqman with my executive producer, co-host, and hubby,
Baba Luqman. And
we bring to you the most dangerous show on social media. So tonight, we're asking, where's the money? Where the money at? Who has it and why? Are organizations such as Black Lives Matter and other grassroots organizations hindering the fight for freedom and equality by not being transparent with their money? We discuss these topics with our distinguished panel of guests, and we are so excited to have these folks talking about this issue because they were right in the thick of it. So you're not going to be hearing from the Luqmans about what we think about what went on. You're going to hear about the people who were involved. But before we do, we would appreciate it if you would
hit the like button,
the
notification icon to
That's
keep
it.
up to date with all of the programming of our Black Power Media contributors, along with subscribing to this channel and becoming a member of the most dangerous media, bar none.
Bar none. So, all right, let's get into this. We have two guests tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have Vanessa of Black Lives Matter Hudson Valley. Welcome, Vanessa. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, could hear you great. You look fabulous. And it's a wonderful honor to have you here. What would you like to tell us about yourself before we get into this discussion?
Hey, Vanessa, she, her, they. I am a member of BLM Hudson Valley, and I'm also the co-founder of Call Black Line, which is a crisis line really for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. That's been live since about 2017.
Beautiful. And Hudson Valley is in New York State, correct?
It's in New York. It's in the state of New York, yes.
All right, cool. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. And then the next person joining us is my sweetheart, my love, Yane Indigo. Yane is the core organizer of Black Lives Matter in Philadelphia or Philly, and she is so many other things. But Yane, thank you so much for joining us. What would you like to tell us about yourself before we get into this discussion?
Well, first thing I want to say is I am a core organizer.
Okay, thank you.
Matter Philly, very important. Also, because I have amazing comrades in Philadelphia, just like my amazing comrade Vanessa up there in Hudson Valley. Mwah, mwah. And I would just say that, I am out here, driven by love, fighting for the freedom of our people. And I will do that through any resource, any way that I can. So I'm a mute when I'm not speaking to prevent that echo, because I've experienced that echo before using StreamYard. But yeah, that's it. So I organize with the Black Alliance for Peace, along with the Luqmans, and I organize and support just any organizing space that's about our liberation, freedom, and our joy and our health, and any way that I can contribute to that. I'm also a writer and a singer and a mother.
Come on. I mean, yeah. I'm like, I know she's not going to stop. I was like, I know she ain't going to stop. So, Yane, thank you so much for joining us. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. We felt like we needed to have this conversation because, look, we can talk about the things that, happen, that get exposed in the media and all this kind of stuff. And we understand that the media will give us half a story, a quarter of a story, or a few lines of the actual story. And we're fortunate that we know people who have been organizing with Black Lives Matter chapters throughout the country.
Right.
And we've seen early on, right? We saw early on, even with Black Lives Matter DC, that they operated differently, or they had a different orientation from the Black Lives Matter organization. All right. So let's just start right there. And, Vanessa, could you tell us if people, so that we frame this discussion in facts, rooted in facts, how did the Black Lives Matter organization begin?
Black Lives Matter organization began. This is me. When I took I went to Ferguson with New York City and New Jersey, and that is where I met Patrice. At the time, we weren't really doing, like, the chant had came out because of Trayvon, but it became a louder chant in Ferguson, and I was not connected. I was not down. I was just like, I feel I'm a mother of a Black son. I need to go. I need to stand in solidarity with Mike's parents, with the folks of Ferguson. So on the way back, New York City and us was saying, like, we should probably start a chapter because we really clear. And, once we got back, a chapter was started. New York City. Now, I live in the Hudson Valley, but I was going down to New York City. And New York City was hard at that time. They started, understanding the principles. Ariel Newton, who's not who helped create a lot of the chapters on the East Coast, helped, and this is what BLM is not saying, she helped them build their principles. And so we had the principles. I'm going down and I'm liking the principles. I'm liking, lifting up and affirming Black women, Black trans women, immigration, Black immigration. So I'm liking these principles, and I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of place that I want to work with and organize with in Hudson Valley, in New York City. Lovingly supported me in starting the Hudson Valley chapter. And at that time, it was kind of not like, I don't know what people consider official. I think that if you're doing the work and you're following the chapters that the principles that were created, you're a chapter. To me, that's because people on the ground doing the work. It's not like signing no paperwork. That's not how grassroots for me works. It's people on the ground doing the work. And so I was a part of it. I've been a part of it since about 2017, 2016. And I went to the North Carolina convening where I got clear about this might not be, the network might not be what we need, because it became in North Carolina clear that they were not transparent with money. They were not transparent then with how they were hiring people. And it was a big blow up in North Carolina, and people were screaming for transparency. What are you doing with the money? How is the money going to be disseminated to the local chapters? And at that time, there were 34 chapters there. And so I'll be honest, BLM Hudson Valley has only received ever from the network $3,000 ever. That's it. We've never received any more money, even though we've been on the ground doing the work.
Okay, so I
went a little far. I'm sorry.
No. I'm trying to decide where I want to ask the first, biting question. Okay, so when the first calls for transparency were exposed in the finances that you saw, Vanessa, when was that? What year was that?
That was 2016.
Okay, 2016. Not too long after the Twitter hashtag, went viral, right? Mm-hmm. So this was way in the beginning, where people were asking, look, people are giving hashtag Black Lives Matter, this organization, money. Where the money at? Yeah. Way back in 2016. All right. Now, Yane, I want to ask you this question. And this is I want to piggyback on something that Vanessa said, because this is a criticism that we see way too much from some folks in the Black community, and we just like putting this stuff out there.
Yeah, there's
no need in acting like we don't say these. Some of us don't say these things. Right. So, Vanessa, you did say that you you were drawn to the message of advocating for Black women, Black people, and Black trans people in particular, right? Yes. All right. Now, Yane, this is where I would like for you to pick up on this, if you're cool with that. There has been criticism of the Black Lives Matter organization because of the focus on LGBTQ justice from the organization, from the organizers, the ones that are identified, that some of us have a problem with that. What's your response to that?
I think that, we say this about white people, right? When we talk about white privilege, we talk about how, or at least I do, how people who are accustomed to privilege will feel, for people who are accustomed to privilege, equality will feel like oppression, right? For them, right? And I think that that's a reality that it happens on in the smaller levels inside of our communities as well. When the same way that we know that, for instance, that's the same argument that a lot of times we hear poor white people making when they talk about when we talk about issues, and we talk about the issues that Black people go through, and you'll find that poor and working class white people will say, well, I'm not privileged, or I'm not wealthy, and I don't have these things. And our argument is, well, even though you may have certain struggles and you may suffer in certain ways, there are communities who suffer and struggle all those things and more things, and then they struggle and they suffer with those things even more deeply, right? And so we forget to turn that lens to our own community. And so that's, I think, one of the things that always concerns me is that we are not being, I don't think it's authentic, first of all, but we're not having any kind of self-reflection in order to identify and acknowledge that there are members of our community that suffer more than we do, even though we suffer a lot. And, and so I have a little bit of patience when it comes to dealing with our people and our fam, because of course I don't want to throw our people away. So I have some patience in working through the conversation to be able to say, like, do you not recognize that there are additional struggles and additional concerns? This is not a Black men don't matter, cis people don't matter kind of position. This is just a position that says that there are additional struggles for certain members of our community, and we need to elevate those in order to ensure that they don't get left out, that they don't get washed away by a generalization of only looking at the concerns that affect those people who are cis and heterosexual, because everybody's not. And the other thing about that whole conversation that I find that comes up is that people will say things like the LGBTQ community has taken over the issue of civil rights and overshadowed the issues, that are centered around race, our issues that are race-based. And that always agitates me, because it's like people forget that there are Black people who are gay or Black people who are trans, and that we have a queer Black community. Now, I think that some people, they are still very white centered. I'm very Black centered. So when you say gay, a gay man or a gay woman, I'm thinking of a Black gay man first. I think of a Black gay woman first. I don't go, but somehow, so many people in our community, if you say someone is gay, you have to say they are gay and Black for them to even remember that we could be talking about people in our own community. Right. So when you're having these conversations, maybe like I tell people, are you saying that the white, because it's true, like just like where the difference between feminism and womanism, between, like white feminism does not actually address the concerns of Black women, right? And it actually leaves Black women behind. So if you're talking about how it's true also that the white LGBTQ community has also left Black LGBTQ people behind. Mm-hmm. So, but we can't do that. And I refuse to do that. So even though we may decide, so when you're talking about that, you really need to be careful about who you're talking about, and you need to be explicit, because you're going to get a fight from me if you talk about, the LGBTQ community is taken over. Like, who are you talking about? If you say the white LGBT community is taking over the human rights, and it's not really a human rights concern, it's a civil rights concern. I mean, it's a human rights issue in general, but when they're talking about this, they're talking about civil rights, and they're taking over the civil rights fight. If you say white LGBTQ community, I will be able to rock with that. I understand that is actually, something that may be happening. But when it comes to our community, we have to fight for every single individual in them. And that means that we have to parse out what that looks like. So if the person is coming from the LGBT, if they're trans, if they're disabled, if they're undocumented, we need to recognize that there are specific concerns. Our children, our seniors, that and for some reason, and acknowledge that what you're dealing with is your homophobia, because you don't have a problem if we say Black children. You don't have a problem if we say Black children. You don't even have a problem if we say, sometimes people have, because they're xenophobic too, they have issues if we talk about, undocumented people in our community, but these are not about you feeling like you're not being elevated or you're not being prioritized. It's about the fact that you're prejudiced. And you're covering it with the idea of Black centeredness, and that's not really true. We're not going for that, but we will help bring you along, because we care about every single member, including our cis straight men, which are the primary people who are here having this argument.
And I'll just real quick before you, I want to make it clear why I asked that question, because too often Hun, we have to address these internal issues. We've got to enter into these principled struggles within our community, and then we get sidetracked by stuff like that.
Exactly.
You know, where instead of addressing the issue of financial obfuscation and the lack of accountability, and maybe not the best organizing structure that we could have embarked upon, we get dragged off track by people's personal feelings about LGBTQIA, Q people. So that's why I asked that question, because we need to make it clear that we're addressing the issue of financial accountability in the Black Lives Matter organization, but some people couldn't even get to that because they wanted to make it about, oh, the gays are taking over Black Lives Matter, that kind of foolishness. So, yeah.
Well, Vanessa, I want to direct this to you. One of the things that Black Lives Matter has exploded so rapidly, and one of the criticisms, if you might say, one of the criticisms is that Black Lives Matter wasn't really set up in the traditional sense that organizations are set up. And so now that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is really at the center of this controversy, would you elaborate on first of all, what does the Black Lives Matter Global Network do, and how is it structured? Because that was one of the main criticisms, is that they're like, even with the chapters, there was this loose alliance of chapters that didn't really have any connection to the overall global. So could you kind of clarify that, please?
So the chapters function, they have different ways of functioning, but we call it decentralized way of functioning, right? There is no leader, we're kind of everybody has a say in how and decisions that are made, etc. But I think what happens is that, and one of our cohorts, Zelly from New Jersey, said this: I think people took decentralization and thought that they shouldn't be held accountable. You still have to be accountable, even if your organization is decentralized. Call Black Line is decentralized. On paper, it says me ED, because in white world you have to have somebody in charge in white world. So we function. Most of the chapters function that way. What the problem is that Patrice kind of labeled herself as maybe queen. I don't know, the head person in charge, and that is not how. We didn't pick her. Right? It wasn't a pick. We didn't, because that's how it was supposed to work. We're supposed to be able to have input in everything that goes on with the network, the global network. Even how they disperse the money should be everybody included and have say. Patrice shouldn't be the only one that is doing everything and speaking on behalf of folks who the reason she is where she is because of the chapters. She didn't do the work that much work on the ground. Chapters, especially the BLM 10 and other chapters, did the work on the ground. So decentralization doesn't mean you don't be accountable and you're not transparent. Decentralization means you are accountable to the people you're supposed to be helping, affirming, uplifting. So if we are the ones supporting BLM network with our work, she's supposed to be accountable to us. And be real clear, we had those conversations with her, and she was supposed to be. And so, but that didn't fan out. I don't, once again, when people want to be in charge, they forget that all the promises that she made to us, she didn't follow through with. And I was very nervous about coming on and interviewing, doing interviews this week, because when that report was released, I was past pissed. I was past that level because of the struggles of most people on the ground in these chapters, the struggle of chapters trying to maintain themselves, the struggle of chapters not having security. Me, myself, when we sued Clarkstown Police, I had to leave where I lived because the police knew where I lived. The police were threatening me. I had nobody. And I was in touch with the network about this lawsuit because they thought it was going to be this wonderful precedent setting. And then they left me. They left me and the members of BLM Hudson Valley alone. And a lot of us had to move. Because our lawyer felt we were not safe. And they never followed up. They never asked, are you okay? This is what the network does not do. Right now, I think they want a job with, Patrice might want a job with Biden. That's what it appears, because we don't also endorse candidates because that's not a system we're trying to work within.
Well, you mentioned earlier about promises that were made. What were some of the promises that were made to your chapter?
Promises like not even a promise, but a statement. Like I'm real clear. Everybody that's on this Zoom meeting, mini chapters, right, will be chapters, whatever that means. Everybody on this Zoom meeting will not be struggling anymore. You know, we will be able to disseminate. Because let's be real clear, they made 90 million this summer. Where's all the other money from the other years? Where's all the finances for the other years? The 90 million was this year, but people have been supporting BLM since it started. So to make the statement that we're going to help y'all out, we need you to help us out. We needed them to help us out. And those were the stuff that was made that everybody's going to get what they need. We're going to be here. And that's not anything that happened. That's not what happened.
So hold on for a second. I just wanted to alert folks to the fact that this is an article about the $90 million that the Black Lives Matter Foundation, they call it a foundation, raised in 2020 alone. Last year alone, is that accurate? Just last year, they raised $90 million. They're shaking their heads.
We don't know if it's accurate, but we know that's what they said.
That's what they said. Well, you can't know it's accurate because there's been no transparency, but sounds about right. So I also want to
but they also, if I may interject, but one of the things that was stated is the fact that they didn't even spend all of that. Like it's like $60 million balance at the end of the, I guess whatever they consider a fiscal year. But as we reported, like during December, as of December, they still was holding on to a $60 million balance.
Right. So this is the level of financial obfuscation we're talking about. We're not talking about some chump change here. We're not talking about a few $1,000s. We're talking about enough money that could have met thousands of people's needs in the streets doing the organization. But before we go further, I want to introduce our next guest who has joined us, Ari.
Hi.
Hello, Ari.
Thanks for having me.
Where'd it go? Ari, the Director of Advocacy and Outreach for Black Lives Matter 5280. Ari, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Just happy to be here and spread awareness about what's really going on. I'm sorry I didn't make it at 5. I was actually down at some of the homeless camps passing some stuff out. So.
You know what?
Happens,
there's no better reason to be late for anything than to be, helping the
they
people.
will forgive me. It is better to ask for forgiveness and permission. It will be all right.
Yeah, and it's true. It is all right. But since you're here, and before we get to your next question, Ari, tell us about, your chapter of BLM and your experiences with this whole mess.
Oh.
You know what right?
You know what a Black
that's a big question. But our experience has been pretty similar to other people's. We did receive some resources this year, which I think is part of the timing of that is really interesting because it was right before we released our statement, like within a week. So it's really interesting that they knew, I believe, they knew this statement was coming out, and at that time they decided to start releasing some funds. That's just my theory. I don't know if that's a fact, but here we are. But in the past, we actually met with, some of their core leadership. We met with Kylie. We've met with them a few times, and each time we're told that there were not resources to support our work. And turns out that's not true. Based on this report that was released. But I think it's really interesting. And I would like to see how the finances looked for the year since 2015 as well, because we also had a situation where we were trying to acquire a property that we lost. We put like a down payment on it that couldn't keep up with, we couldn't make it happen, and so we lost that $10,000. How much did they pull in that year? Is what I'm wondering. And you know, could we have acquired the property that we were going to use as a community center and to house our freedom school and, you know, a space where we can provide mutual aid? It's stuff like that when you look back on it and why this is kind of traumatizing for chapters to hear. It's like we've been scraping by trying to do the best for people actually on the ground in our city, and you have millions and you're still sitting on them. Like, that hurts. That's not what we're about. That's not our movement.
Yeah, Yana, you had your hand up for a second.
Yeah, because I wanted to just there's an echo, Ari, if you don't mind muting. And also, I just want to blow some kisses to my Ari as well. Since you got here late, you didn't get to get any of that love that I have for my comrades. But I just, because the issue as it relates to this funding is also like they had agreed to be transparent. We had a particular internal accountability process that we were going through before we went public, and in that process we had a set of, we called them requirements, and we called them requirements rather than demands, because we were still operating from a place of like, we are working within our community, right? That this is communal. Didn't want to respond or engage them in the same way that we engage the system, right? So, so we called them requirements, but one of them was the disclosure of financial resources that were held and distributed by the foundation. I'm reading from that letter. And so there were 11 requirements, and Patrice actually agreed to all 11 of those requirements. And she agreed to that verbally in both of two meetings. There was a meeting with just 4 representatives, and there was a meeting with the whole collection of us. And in both of them, she agreed to all of the requirements, including the transparency, making these funds transparent. And then what she did is she consistently said that she was going to get reports from the fiscal sponsor 1,000 Currents and the fiscal sponsor Tides. And that once she got the reports, that she would share them with us and she would get that information to us. And she kept saying, oh, we just haven't gotten it. Oh, they're just taking a long time to get us this reports. I'm trying. As soon as I can, we'll get them. And in the meantime, it's really important for us to say, even though Patrice is the target that people are focusing on, Patrice was not alone in this process. Patrice was not alone in usurping democracy and undermining transparency and accountability within this community. But while Patrice was slowly not giving us any information and pretending that she was trying to get information to us, she had her cohorts who were working within our group who were preventing us from making progress on that internal accountability process until they announced the development of a new formation, BLM Grassroots. And so these stages, they were very intentional and thought through processes that they went through in order to, they all knew Patrice is not the only one making this decision. It's not one person. She's not the only person making the decisions around where these funds are going to. She has collaborators, and I don't know if she realizes that she gives those collaborators cover. I don't know if she recognizes that just the way that they had a previous scapegoat, that she is now the person who is able to be their scapegoat, because she's the person whose name is out there. She's the person who was named executive director. Other people are benefiting as well from these decisions. You know, this whole idea of a PAC was something that was being pushed for quite some time by one of her cohorts. So everybody's getting the things that they want, but only one person's getting the heat. Well, one person is the main person who's getting the heat, you know, but she agreed to that. And then once they established that once they claimed and created Grassroots behind our backs, they had told us they were going to do it. Then they said, it's not moving, y'all. And then all of a sudden they were like, hey, guess what? We made it. And if you want, you can be a part of it. And if you decide to be a part of it, then, maybe we'll give you some extra money. And in the meantime, the accountability process was perceived to be dead. But what we did when we went public is we said that this accountability process is not going to end. And that's not going to end because just like you saw what happened now recently, there are organizers in Ferguson who are stepping forward and they are saying, you owe us money. The reality is that this is not about just the chapters. This is not just about these group of organizers. This is about the entire community, the organizing community that puts their lives on the line and the community that we work for. And so we had to go out public because of the negative impact that these individuals who take ownership of this movement and take leadership of this movement was having on the important work that the organizing community is doing on behalf of our community to get our people free and to get our people relief from this system of oppression. And so we were forced to say this accountability process is going to continue because we owe our community what they deserve. And so that was that process. But she explicitly agreed to show us all the books. And so we are now saying, don't just tell us how much money you raised and don't just talk about 2020. Mm-hmm. Go all the way back from the very beginning, from the moment you were with Tides and your money, with Thousand Currents, and the money was moved to Thousand Currents, and show us how every dollar was spent. Because that is what your fiscal sponsor was responsible for doing, was making sure that you had track of every dollar. We want to know if any of those dollars went into individual people's accounts. Mm-hmm. We want to know if any of those dollars helped pay for any individual people's vacations, or any individual people's cars, or any individual people's houses, or went into individual people's organizations. We want to know where that money was used over the course of all of these years while people were being hungry, while people were losing access or having housing instability, while people were having to raise money in order to get out of in order to raise bail. What were you doing with our resources?
Wow. Yeah. Well, Vanessa, the Global Foundation stated that, I guess under pressure, that they did give up, that they did spend like $27 or $21 million to various what they call official and unofficial chapters. So my question to you is, first of all, what is the what is the criterion for when they said that they gave out this kind of money to official and unofficial chapters? What's the criterion for that?
I don't know, because what happened is that, I'll be honest with you, we after North Carolina, we established BLM Hunter Valley. At one point, we were on, like, the if you looked at the map, we were on it. There was actually probably about 34 chapters that was on it, and then as Janae was saying, Kaylee or whoever she was, when she came on, people we called it siloed out, but people were we were taken out. Which is fine. Because we were still doing the work, but I was like, oh, well, I got receipts because I got emails from them about what we were and that we were a chapter. So we don't know, because what it became, and what I found out is that if you kind of were in their clique, because here's the deal, people say, well, you will offer 500,000. Right. If we sign the grassroots paperwork, which we all had problems with, the language was anti-trans, etc. We were not signing that paperwork. We were like, no, we made the decision together to say, no, we're not signing. And you got the $500,000 hush money. That's what I call it. It's hush money.
Wow.
And we didn't want the hush money. We want accountability and transparency. So I don't know. At one point we were a chapter. The next point, and even in a couple of articles, Patrice named a few people who signed some paperwork back in the day under duress. They were affiliates. We never signed any paperwork because we're not going to be forced to. So I don't know. I'm a chapter and I'm official, and that's how I look at it, because the work we do on the ground, we're official.
So apparently, even with the $60 million balance that's reported, have the Global Foundation, anybody connected with that, have they ever have they reached out now, since that their dirty laundry's been thrown out there? Have they now changed it to the point where they reached out to the organizers and chapters on how they're going to spend this remaining 60 million?
Everybody's shaking their head. No.
And the thing that I want to be clear about is that, yes, they gave money out to certain organizations, right? And we found out who they gave the money to when the public found out who they gave the money to, just like we found out about all of these different campaigns that they would be putting out there before even this rift and everything happened. The whole thing with Kaylee, as Vanessa brought up, the whole thing with Kaylee is that Kaylee was scapegoated. That's how I feel anyway. But we were upset because things kept going out in our name, and we did not have any idea about it until it went out in the people sitting in movie theaters finding out what our campaign is, seeing advertisements about our campaign. And in the same, just like they had no right to make those decisions to say, this is what the politics of BLM is going to be for 2020, they also had no right to decide how our money was going to be spent. So even if we agreed with those organizations getting that money, it was for us to decide collectively that they were going to use that money in that way. Because there are a lot of organizations that I can think of that I would want to provide support to. I have no problem with the idea of chapters of organizations that are not chapters of Black Lives Matter being able to receive funds that come through Black Lives Matter on behalf of the movement, because we recognize that people see Black Lives Matter as the whole movement and we are just a part of the movement. So we have no problem with that at all. We are down with sharing our funds or sharing these funds. We see these as collective funds, but we do not think that there is small groups of individuals who have the right to decide on our behalf where those funds go. We should be deciding that collectively. That's one of our many problems. I see Tree is here.
Yes. So before I ask the next question that somebody asked in the chat, I do want to recognize that Amika Tendaji is joining us, who is the executive director of Black Lives Matter in Chicago. Amika, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you so much. And we see you're on the move, so we really appreciate you joining us while you are out and about and on the move. How are you doing, sis?
I'm doing well. We had a press conference today to celebrate the life of Berta Cáceres, who was killed like Fred Hampton was killed, assassinated in Honduras for trying to uplift Black and Brown people. So we see the same thing is going on, which is why we need resources to keep fighting that.
Now, I think this question goes to the lack of transparency on another level, because Devotion Orange asks, didn't they delete info from their website that displayed donations from what some people called questionable sources? And then someone else asked what the questionable language was in the agreement that people didn't want to sign. And I think you guys, you all identified it as anti-trans language. But who wants to address the website issue? Because I think I remember that being an issue at some point where there was information that was posted on the website about donations going to the Black Lives Matter organization, and then some people didn't like who was giving money, and then the information was taken off the website. Right. Did that happen? And I mean, was that a thing?
I know I didn't see it, but here's the deal: is that this is one of the reasons why we ask for transparency about where the money comes from as well. Because if you're taking money from folks that are harming us, that kind of becomes an issue as well. So I think that if something did get deleted, because I don't follow them, I'll be honest with you, I don't follow them now. It could have been that it might have been some kind of PAC money from different white supremacist organizations. I don't put it past them that they didn't get that kind of money from folks. I'm just going to be honest with you, because right now there is some kind of desire to be within this political democracy that is democratic, that really is not doing us any services whatsoever. So I know for me, I didn't see anything.
So and any of you ladies could take this question. Now that we're at this point, and now that the organization is at this point, what are some of the ideas? What are some of the ideas to move forward? What are some of the things that will be put in place? Are the chapters the chapters who have left? Are they getting together? What is going to be? How are you going to solve these issues?
I think the chapters that are left are working on healing, first of all, and developing stronger relationships with each other. The movement needs and deserves a grassroots network for Black people that anyone who gets politicized can join up to. But that's a slow, long process. And with, you know, a lot of chapters who are already doing a lot of work in their cities, and who are, you know, also healing. This is, you know, a lot of trauma as well.
Yeah, I mean, Amika, I'm glad that you said what you did about trauma and healing, because it's like this conversation we have about reparations, right? Now we don't expect this government to make us whole with reparations. That's not even the point. And I'm starting to get angry again, because I thought I had gotten over my anger from that thing yesterday, but I apparently haven't. And I need to heal from it. But okay, I'm not gonna. But, you know, reparations. The point is not to make us whole. The point is restitution for injustices committed against us. That's the point, the only point. And we cannot have the kind of healing that we need to get through some of the trauma of being economically disenfranchised, really raped the way we have been, of being oppressed, of going without, of being on the bottom for so long economically. Just, you know, the stress of having to, you know, you go to college, you get a degree, and then you can't get a job in the field that you got your degree in, and then all the white gatekeepers and some of their Black mascots are telling you went to the wrong college, you got the wrong degree, and, you know, all that kind of thing, and all of the mental stuff that goes with being Black in a white supremacist society that is designed based on the capitalist model to keep you on the bottom, because somebody has got to be oppressed, and we're almost always it. Because, you know, we just are. So in that way,
because we lack power.
See, that's a whole nother
lack power.
Okay, whole nother discussion right there. But in that way, the Black Lives Matter organization still has $60 million. And you all have suffered. Vanessa has said she's gone through a lawsuit. She had to move, didn't get any support. I know that folks in Black Lives Matter Philly have suffered police abuse and arrest. I'm sure comrades that you rock with, Ari, have suffered deep repression in Colorado. The same with you, Amika. And you all have done all of this in the midst of COVID, where this government ain't giving you nothing to help you pay your bills.
That's right.
To help you buy food. And here Ari is, who just came from mutual aid for the homeless community. And if I would venture to say, because this is the way we operate here too, this is the way every organization I know operates, unless your chapter raised that money yourself, you probably came out of your pocket for some of those resources. So my question is, I mean, because to me, making this right financially is a part of this healing that Amika said needs to be done. So how does that happen? How does the people in the Black Lives Matter leadership, whatever they are, whoever they are, who still has this $60 million, how do they get up off that money and distribute it among the people who the money belongs to? Vanessa?
So I have said this going way back. And this is, I'm an older head. I've been around for a minute. People will stand strong in their wrongness. I don't see them even saying, let's try to meet. We did some dirt. We need to talk. I said this before when we first started this. They are standing strong in their wrongness. Healing is just saying we effed up. It's okay to organize and say we messed up because we don't know everything. And that's all it takes is to have a sit down with us. We messed up, and how can we rectify it with y'all? But they're not, if they do it, I'll fall out my chair, but I'm like, nah, they standing strong in their wrongness. But that's what I would like to happen, is that how do we reconcile? How do we, go through some, heal that trauma? Because I've been very angry for a minute. And so how do we even dispel my anger to the point where I wanted to fight people? I was like, if they were standing here, I would have definitely hit them. Because I'm old school and just smack them. And so I just don't know why they're not thinking. Like when you release a statement and say $90 million and then a promissory of 30 million to different organizations, for me, that shouldn't even been said. Right. The 30 million holding for other organizations should never, because you can't, as a person who runs their own businesses, I can't tell my accountant, yo, I'm gonna just put 30 million aside for these people. That's not how any auditing works anyway. That was just them trying to cover up that we need to figure out how we're gonna get rid of this money and make people think we're getting rid of it. So I would like for them to have conversation, real sincere conversations about their mess up. I want to curse, but about their mess ups. That's what I want to see happen.
Oh, you can curse. That's all right. We do that shit up there.
About their fuckery. Okay, about their daggone fuckery. Okay.
Now I'm feeling at home.
Yeah. Hey, Yande, let me ask you this question though. Now, the fact that this is an issue of accountability, and I think that you ladies laid it out wonderful about some of the mishaps that happened and some of the people behind it. But what would you say to those critics who would say that maybe Black Lives Matter, the way that the organization is structured, the decentralization, that may have played a part in this? Because you can ask for accountability, but then you have to say to yourself, well, how can we address this when the internal structure doesn't have I guess some would say a traditional structure. Yeah. But if you're decentralized, then so how would you redress that? So what would you say to your critics who say, well, Black Lives Matter done it to themselves? I mean, they set themselves up for this. What would you say to that?
Those people weren't in the rooms. I mean, there has been so first of all, decentralized, it doesn't mean structureless, right? It doesn't mean that there's no structure. And Amika in particular, of those of us on this call, put a lot of and years of effort into the establishment of structure. And, and those who we talked about earlier before Amika was able to join the call, who created this grassroots structure alternative, those individuals were amongst those who consistently undermined the effort to actually create structure. But people were not only asking for transparency. When people were making these calls, people were asking for, like, how do we establish this as a structure that will be able to function well and positively in service to our community? And those efforts to create such a structure that enables the broad leadership skills that are in our community to be empowered, those things that was undermined consistently so that we could get to this point. And this is not just an internal reflection of what's happening internally, because yes, there were funds that were put into Black Lives Matter over the course of time that most of us had no knowledge of and no understanding of. But there was influence. There was influence around how this organization moved forward. There was influence around the politics. There was influence around who was elevated, because even though this was called a leaderful or leaderless, whichever word you prefer, movement, there was this term established, the founders. So that was them using a language, like playing with language and deciding not to say leaders in order to not be able to be held accountable, in order to establish this narrative that there were no leaders and that they were not leaders, but they were still actually taking leadership and taking position to actually make decisions and to have a certain amount of autonomy, even though there were a massive number of organizers. And Amika, like I said, is amongst them and can really speak to this even better, who really were pushing and challenging for a structure that would actually benefit the work that we were out to do, so that the chapters would be able to be connected with each other, so that the chapters would be able to collaborate with each other and be able to support each other, be able to have a central space. The central space was supposed to be in service to the work that was happening across the country. And that was undermined intentionally. But I really would like to invite Amika to talk a little bit more about this idea, because there's definitely a difference between decentralized and structureless.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, Amika. We do want you to talk about that, but let me just make this point for folks in the chat, because listen, we don't want to silence, people who disagree with our guests and our points of view. That is not why Black Power Media exists, and that's not what Luqman Nation does. We ain't afraid of nobody's opinion. But what we will not allow in our chat rooms are people who are abusive to anyone in our communities. If you have a problem with LGBTQ people, we see you making homophobic, transphobic, anti-gay comments. We are going to put you in a timeout for 5 minutes. If you come back with it, we're blocking you, because we're not going to allow our people to be subjected to the kind of hatred in our spaces that they got to deal with out in the world.
Exactly.
That's not what we're going to allow here. And we're also not going to allow we're not going to allow classist shit up in here. We ain't about no Black excellence and top tier Black men. I saw that. I'm going to let that pass one time. That man is a blue collar, truck driving, hard ass working brother. And you're not going to come on our streams with this Black woman and make some fucked up statements about some classist bullshit that does not happen with the people we know and in this space. So I saw that.
Right.
I'm going to let it go this time.
Right.
But you get this one warning. The next time, time out. And after that, you get blocked.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, just to add on to that, is that we're here to try to have an adult conversation. So, if you can't have anything, it was just like our mothers told us, if you ain't got nothing to say, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, just watch silently and just be pissed off that we in here not talking about what you want to talk about. But okay, anyway. All
right, so back to the message at hand.
Okay, Amika, please explain, your role in creating this structure in this decentralized space.
So yeah, I would say that there was structure. I came into BLM about 5 years ago. I started organizing with folks trying to do national strategy maybe a year into that. And there was structure. There were there was staff, there were regional organizers for the Midwest and the South. I think that the structure was undermined. I also don't want to shit on decentralization, right? We need decentralization and structured orgs to really absorb the masses. And just, in case anyone kind of doesn't know, like the decentralized, right, is how we would put out a campaign for anybody to join and give them toolkits so they can get started, in their own area. That way, if they turn out to be terrible, we don't have to own them, right? But they can get a little practice under them that isn't waiting on organizational gatekeepers to do that. So I think both are important. And I was a part of a transition team once all the staff were let go. All the regional organizers were let go. We were brought together to develop a charter for the entire organization based on needing a fiscal sponsor or
go ahead, okay, there you go.
Sorry, needing to get a 501c3 in a rush. So we developed a team called the Transition Team and a plan to really develop and organize chapters to strengthen the chapters and also to strengthen the network so that the chapters could also rely on a network, be coordinated by this network. And that didn't happen. It was consistently undermined. There was a lot of kind of power grabbing and fighting. And so, yeah, it just dissolved. And then that split became, there was a split that became like the grassroots global network and the chapters who wanted a democratic network.
Yeah, so I see another question in the chat, and I think I saw this a couple of times. Blood Honey asks, on the strategy tip, what happened to Blackbird? I'm not familiar with what that
I'm
is.
not
So
with it either.
you got Ari, you look like you're smiling. So do you want to take that one? What happened to Blackbird?
I'm actually not familiar with that at all. So that's why I've heard it and I know what it is, but I don't know how it relates to me or BLM.
Is anybody familiar with that?
Nah.
Oh, well, sorry.
Well, if anybody want to chat, Blood Honey, if you know what it is, could you please let us know?
Yeah, because now we all want to know.
Right.
So I do have a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Yane, go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask. I saw, I've been going to the chat, and I saw one question that Shirley asked about this discontent primarily over money, and I wanted to address that.
Sure.
If we could, because it's not. The thing is that like BLM Philly. So BLM Phillies in the last year has raised money. And there are chapters, they mentioned that they were going to be giving money to some chapters, and they have, said that they were going to be giving money to, or have given some money very recently. We haven't gotten, as of this date, we've only gotten like $5,000 from the global network, but they are promising us this $500,000. And, and that's just like, it's just like somebody, like how we handle Puerto Rico. We take all of this money from Puerto Rico, and then we give a little bit and claim that it's aid, and then we act like we're doing something in the U.S., or I should say they, because I'm not doing that, but the U.S. is the same thing. This is our money, and then they're offering us a piece of our money. But we need funds and resources. We're not going to turn it away while we're figuring out, like some of us, it's a chapter-based decision. We're not going to be turning those funds away when we have a community that we need to serve. But no, this is not about money. This is also about like the politics that Black Lives Matter puts out there on, through the website, the direction that Black Lives Matter has been leading the movement, the goofy ass shit that Black Lives Matter Global Network is doing, the stupid goofy shit they're doing on the website and on their social media, the request for getting, having a seat at the table with the Biden administration, bigging up, Kamala Harris, those politics are confusing the people, and it does not represent the politics of the chapter. And that's a massive part of what is important to us. And one of our other demands that we put out there, when I mentioned our demands, one of our other demands was that we would have access to the foundations, that the chapters would have access to the foundation's social media platforms through a vetted set of chapter representatives. And so the reason that was important is because we don't want that stupid shit going out there representing our chapters and confusing our community. So it's certainly not at all about money. But if you got our money, if you got my chicken platter, that shit is mine.
There you go.
That's right.
Yep, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So you mentioned, Yane, the demands. Ari, what are the demands?
Our demands are for accountability, transparency, and collective democratic decision making. Those are the three core demands, but there were 11 of them. I'm not familiar with exactly what they were that Patrice actually agreed to way back before grassroots kind of halted that whole process. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but it's really like at its core, all of this is accountability. Reparations are accountability, and they have moved in really colonial ways. So to me, I do see it as reparations that they owe us. They've caused a lot of harm in the way that they've moved. They've moved in really white ways in the way that they have grabbed for power and taken power from other chapters. And I'm responsible in my local chapter in Denver for the messaging that they put out and the money that they have. So when we go to someone and say, hey, we want to get funding for this project and we're trying to get this grant, and they say, well, we already gave money to BLMG, and did that not go to you because they knew we were in Denver? Why did that not come back to you? So we're also accountable for the way that they move. And that's not like, I don't even have knowledge of it. I find out at the same time the public does what's going to be on that website. That twerking video was embarrassing.
What?
Embarrassing.
Huh?
Well,
They
yeah,
put out some fuck shit video. Sorry.
No, let it.
yeah.
Somebody
come on.
twerking with a flag. I
Wow.
don't even remember what day that was for. Some stupid ass shit on Instagram, and they got dragged for filth, which they deserved. But
King Day. It was on King
Yeah,
Day.
no,
Working on Washington.
King Day?
Wait.
Did we hear that
At
right?
the King Monument. Twerking out
Wow.
on the King Monument and at the
in
Lincoln.
some like tiny ass African or American flag booty shorts, like just ugly. And people see that, and we look like clowns.
And then they make it hard because we don't want to attack the sister who was in the video, right? We don't want to demean, the twerking and act like we have an issue with twerking, right?
No,
So
we don't do that here.
that's not what it's about,
That's right.
So yeah.
But what was the messaging like as far like
Freedom of our bodies?
There wasn't really anything, like there was no context like that. So it wasn't even like slut or sex positive or anything like that. It was just some random ass twerking video on MLK Day.
Just up to everyone's interpretation and no clarification and analysis of anything.
Yeah.
They had a little write-up, but
it had no real context.
Who reads write-up on Instagram? I don't.
Exactly. You took 0.5 seconds to grab my attention. Let's be real.
They kept going through. Read the write-up. Like,
you could have put it in the video then.
Right. Well, let me bring Amika back in here. Amika, look, one of the things that we were talking about as far as this accountability go, because it's still $60 million left on this table. Now this is something. Now we keep hearing Patrice's name a lot, right? But I remember, and some people who may not be intimate with the organization remember that on the red carpet and stuff was 3 women, right?
Right.
So it was 3, but I don't hear the other 2. I mean, so what? So do we actually have? And I'm just putting this in this term. So has Patrice become the de facto dictator? Is what I'm hearing you guys say. And when it comes to trying to get this transparency or having some of this balance dispersed, and you don't have to answer this because I know this goes into strategy. Would you guys consider maybe legal action? Like I said, you don't have to answer it, but what are some of the tools that you have in order to maybe force her hand?
I mean, I suppose legal action is out there and available, but we're really busy. We really don't have time for that. We all have chapters that we have to take care of. In that question, right? I don't want to say that the remaining founder, when there are co-founders, are de facto dictators. Aislenn's the remaining founder for BLM Chicago, and she's not a de facto dictator. There was there was staffing, there was structure. We just never had democracy, and so you can put the greatest system you want to in place and put folks in it that aren't going to hold their leaders accountable and leaders that are not going to behave accountable, and you're going to get what we got, right? And you can, you can have somebody that wants to, just run everything, or folks that are cool with that in any kind of structure. And so, I think, I know for sure there was hurt and difficulty with other co-founders leaving, but that doesn't force anyone's choices.
All right. And I want to follow up on that. And I apologize for my term if that
No,
offends anybody.
Just take it. Go ahead. Just take it.
But another thing too, now that we have that out there, has this hurt because I know when Black Lives Matter was really visible, you know, with George Floyd and Freddie Gray and all, you know, I mean, people were coming into the organization like droves. Now that a lot of this has come to the surface and has been made public, has that kind of hurt the recruitment of Black Lives Matter, or has membership gone down? And I'm talking about the you know, the rank and file people. Have the ranks going down? Has support going down?
I can't believe you just stole my question.
I did.
You just stole my question like they stole that $90 million. Doggone it. No.
Vanessa, you want to take that?
I can't speak. I mean, it's probably maybe different in different communities. But I personally feel that not doing this was costing credibility. I think that people in the organizing community and in the community in general were aware, like watching the politics of Black Lives Matter Global Network, and seeing that money, and had a lot of questions. And then, as Ari mentioned, those questions were going back to the people that they knew. So their local organizers and their local chapters. I think that making this has helped to create some credibility where people now understand, like, oh, that's not a reflection of all of the organizers that are under this Black Lives Matter mantle or have the Black Lives Matter name. And so I think that it actually has improved our credibility. And for people who were like, I want to organize, but that's some fuck shit over there. Now those people are like able to say, oh, okay, maybe there's these people have some dope politics, and we can get more involved, and we can be more supportive, and we can collaborate more. So at least in my experience, I think that it has been helpful and has actually elevated the validity of Black Lives Matter in the larger radical Black organizing movement. But I can't speak for others that are up there. So I'll let y'all speak for yourselves.
So I run Call Black Line, and if you Google it, you'll get Black Lives Matter hotline. I get 33% of my calls are for BLM. 33%. People are looking for help still, even if we have all this angst going on. People are looking for help. I try to field the calls to local chapters, but they're looking for help. So I don't even see it. And it's funny because you asked that question, because it actually picked up from when I started Call Black Line. I actually get more calls for people looking for Black Lives Matter, and me saying this is not them. They just created a hotline, which does not look like my Call Black Line. But they just created, I just got the email today that they just created a hotline, the Global Network, by the way.
Of course.
So I will be giving people that number to decrease all the calls that I field. So yeah, it seems to me that people still need help. Black people still need help. Black people are still looking at this organization as the organization that can help them. Whether we help, I tell people all the time, you might want to start organizing. If it's your job that's bothering you, start organizing. So people are still looking for help. I don't see it diminishing. I think that even though there's some stuff going on, I think that people realize that even though they got their fuckery going on, there was work being done somewhere.
Right.
Ari, you're nodding your head. Do you feel the same way? Do you see the same response on the ground in Colorado?
I do. And I think the skepticism, that's answered by me being out in the street and answering calls for, mutual aid. I did a bunch of restorative justice work today. Being able to stay in contact with community, that ripples out, So people know what I do and what I'm about. They know what 5280 does and what we're about. And if they have misconceptions about that, then they don't know us. So that's a person we still need to reach, Yeah. A lot of times the beef isn't with, it's with something that has nothing to do with me, that I have no insight into, I'm not aware of. It didn't happen in Denver, some like national thing that they saw that they have questions about, which is valid and should be answered. I just don't have those answers. And once they realize that and that we're out here working, then there's no beef, there's no reason to be upset.
yeah, they see you doing the work, and that other stuff is some fuck shit that they're like, okay, well, that's them people over there, but you are out here among the people helping.
Right.
Amika, I want to ask you this question because Shirley asked, why is it a problem for BLM to engage elected officials on policies that are beneficial to our communities? Is that what the leadership of BLM Global Network was doing when they were making their statements about Biden and Harris and, you know, the incoming administration? Were they advocating for policies that would be beneficial to people, or was it something else? And please ignore our dog, who is just jealous because we have spent this long time not paying attention to him. Please.
He misses me.
Yep.
That's true.
How do we know that dog isn't making excellent points?
Right. He misses his girlfriend Yane. That's
he heard my voice.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Strong points that got made. I mean, I don't think that there is a problem with engaging an elected official on a policy that benefits your community, right? But within reason. So, you know, in Chicago, we have the called like 6 socialist city council members, and, you know, engaging with them, right? But am I going to sit down with the writer of a crime bill on a, you know,
right.
It's within reason, right? And we gotta, like, elected officials in their capacity are different. You know, by the time you are running for president, because we don't have campaign finance reform, that is so much money. Those people are not, you know, this is very different than a hyper local, you know, engaging in with folks that can run our municipal governments, not people who are interacting with billionaires on a regular basis that are talking to their campaigns.
No, well, I'm saying we're coming up on our time, but what I want to do is just open up and have each of you give what your vision is for Black Lives Matter. And before you do that, and even one of you could take this question, because someone in the chat says, what would be the harm in rebranding, you know, yourselves into something else, right?
Okay, so, this one. Oh, I wanted to rename. One, I think, you know, this is a marketing campaign. So BLM has attracted a lot of opportunists, more than other organizing formations that I've been in. So, you know, Chicago never had a super, you know, close relationship with the network. And I was like, we should change it. I wanted it to be the Black Butterfly Collective, BBC for short. That did not fly in my chapter.
Why not?
Why not?
I don't understand. I never got it. You know, I thought we would be at rallies like BBC Stand Up, BBC on the Rise. They weren't for it.
On the rise.
But I can definitely understand the founder of the Chicago chapter and lots of other chapters, you know, feeling like Tina Turner in this moment. I am keeping my name. It is the name under which lots of powerful, you know, predominantly like Black women have done some amazing work. And if they, you know, it wasn't my decision, I would have gone with BBC. But, you know, I understand wanting to keep the name that you've worked for so hard, and that you've also, people don't have, like the chapters themselves are busy. We don't have time for one more what we gonna name ourselves meeting. We don't have time.
We also have a lot of community partners and people who know us by this name. So if I change it, I'm going to spend the next year being like, actually, that's who we used to be. This is our new name. I don't have time for that.
Right.
You know where to find us.
Remember, it's only like, it's not that many of them. You know, like there's a lot more organizers that have been organizing under Black Lives Matter than, you know, these few individuals. And, you know, and so, you know, and they, just because they maybe like founded the hashtag or, you know, initiated the hashtag or whatever, you know, that doesn't give them ownership. You know, I think that people have the right to do that, and we have to prevent that movement, you know, people from, you know, making these kinds of moves through this kind of accountability process. And we also have to make sure the community knows and understands, like if we just left, then there will be a vacuum of information, right? And the community wouldn't know. And again, like there has been a lot of harm that was done, and it keeps being done. You know, there are ways that Black Lives Matter is used through this national network in order to minimize or to dampen or lower the strength of the movement. And so we can't leave it in the hands of individuals who will allow that to happen, because there are too many people who just wouldn't even know if we shifted. They wouldn't know there's this difference, and they would still be following this misleadership. And so instead of allowing a new misleadership establishment to, you know, to perpetuate itself, we're here to stop that, to interrupt that, and transform that.
Vanessa, go ahead.
We will stay with BLM 10, but our chapter is thinking about it. Only because we are all known in Orange and Rockland and Hudson Valley. Individually, they know us, of people who do the work. So we're not tied to the name at this point, because we are still on the ground doing the work regardless of the name. So the chapter is, the members are very pissed. And so we are having a discussion. I'm more so we should keep it, but like I said, I go with, you know, Robert Rule, like whoever, if it's a bulk says change it, it'll probably get changed. So there's names are being thrown out, but people are mad. I'm like Yarnay and them, we need to keep it because this is the work we did under it. Right. But I want to go with my team. Whatever the team says is what we'll go with.
See how your team feels about BBC.
Don't let go of that. Don't let go of that. We like that.
You should at least just register a website right quick. Just make sure you have it.
Oh, and somebody in the chat asked the closest college. The closest college is New Paltz or Mount St. Mary College. So those are the colleges in the Hudson Valley area.
Cool.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I hope my comrades won't be angry that I should say this, but I said it on the previous live stream, so I feel like it's already out there. But I just want to say that you know, we talked about the founders, the quote unquote founders, and I just don't even like that name, you know, because it was a lot of people who were involved in founding the movement beyond this name. But you know, we talked about how, you know, a couple of the founders, they left, you know, several years ago. All three of the founders had left the network. Yeah. You know, at different times, all three of the so-called founders had left the network. Patrice was the last who left, but I think that it's important to be clear that Patrice left. Patrice left. She announced that she was leaving. She was gone, and she moved and shifted into a position of a board member. And then when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered and things went crazy and around the country, all of a sudden, Patrice came back. That's you know, all $90 million can make a person change their mind about where they might want to be doing their organizing. You know, I think it's important to recognize that she left us in the lurch. After
I remember that when she left.
The organizing and structure building efforts of people like Amika, and then came back and took ownership of something that was not hers, that is theft. And again, did it with her co-conspirators. So I just think it's important to put that out there.
That is important. Yeah, that is incredibly important. Yeah. And I feel like this conversation we had tonight, because of the realities, the truths that you comrades have brought to us, this conversation was incredibly, incredibly important. Because, you know, usually y'all know how we do. Me and Baba sit around with the dog and we, you know, give you our perspective, our analysis on things, and that's fine and cool. But with issues like this, I am never comfortable with us just telling people like what we see happen. Right. If we know people who have been involved in this issue, we need to have those people in this space telling the truth as it happened. So we really, really appreciate the fact that all of you were willing to come on with us tonight. Vanessa out in Hudson Valley in New York, Amika out in Chicago, Yane in Philly, and Ari in Denver. We really thank y'all so much for coming out, taking folks' questions, telling us what really happened, and making it clear what went down. So with the last few minutes that we have left, I'm gonna we want to like you said, baby, we want to Oh yeah, that's right. I'm gonna call him pet names from time to time. So
well, Yane know.
So
Yane already know.
So don't get all freaked out.
Right.
This is over. And
Right.
Anyway, I guess there are probably kids watching. So let's not. Okay. But like you said, hon, we want to open the floor.
Right.
We want to open the floor for you all to say whatever last words you have, the path forward, and what you want to leave people watching with.
I'll go first. We just want to build communities where Black people feel protected and free. At the core of all of our work, that's the mission. And you can't do that without transparency. So I also believe that the truth will come out. Like, you can't keep hiding.
Right.
So, a lot of this was an answer to our demands, and there's still going to be more, and you're going to keep seeing revelations, and it'll tell the story that we're telling, because, the truth is there. So, I want to see communities, structures, everything that just allows Black people to live freely. That's what I want to see, and that's what we're working on here in Denver.
Beautiful. Who wants to go next? Amika?
I want power for poor Black folks in Texas, and I don't want high electricity bills for them. I want a grassroots network for Black people that when they become politicized, they can join up and really believe in. And I want money for folks doing the work. So that we can get our folks in this movement politicized and get out these jams.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Vanessa.
I just want to say that all of us who have been working in BLM 10 and other folks who have been supporting us, we do this for the love of the people. No other reason. We're not getting paid. Some of us almost houseless at some point. Sick. So this is for the love of the people. And like everyone else, I want us to have some power, some liberation, some peace. Damn it, some goddamn peace. And that's why we stay doing this work, for no other reason but for the love of the people.
Yane?
First, I just want to thank the Luqmans for having us on, and just appreciate y'all my fam. I want to say that there are definitely orgs and organizers that you can count on. One of the things that I saw somebody comment in there is they don't know who they can trust. And I get that's hard, because we have things like this. We do have betrayals. But it is, just like I kept saying, we talk about a small group of people in this space, right, who were involved in this, in comparison to like a massive number of organizers who have put their blood, sweat, tears on the ground, and who do this from the minute they wake up to the minute they fall asleep, and then they working on it in their dreams, right? Like, we are here. And so, have heart and yes, do your investigating, but just like know where the politics are, deepen your analysis, continue to do that work. Study things like the counterinsurgency program, which this whole thing has been a part of, has ended up being a tool of counterinsurgency. Study those things, but, remember that the vision that I have, which is really what the question is supposed to be, is I have a vision in which there are no jobs. People keep pushing, everybody needs a job. I say abolish jobs. We need to just do our work and work for our communities, but abolish jobs, abolish money, abolish these systems. I have a vision where we all realize where the power is, and the power is here. That we take our power from the system instead of trying to receive power from the system. That we actually recognize that we are the ones who power the system, and we can power whatever we want, and we can power our liberation, and we can power our freedom, and that is what our focus is building what we already know we are, and that we do that across the globe because we recognize the connection that all African people have everywhere, that we reinvigorate our Pan-African reality and know that, it is our connection to our African roots and not our relationship with this system that is what matters most, and that is what connects us and empowers us. And when we do that, and we are all free, and we don't have anybody that ever jumps in comments asking questions about why we love our trans or our gay family members, because we recognize that it is okay for us to love all of each other, every member of our community. That is the vision that I'm working for, and whatever organizing structure will enable me to build that, that's where I want to be.
Well, I
I
mean,
believe BLM is one of the places that can happen.
well, I tell you, I mean, what a note to end on, right?
I mean, this is the kind of conversation that Luqman Nation exists to have with our comrades who are doing the work. We don't mess with people who are not in the streets doing the work about that life. People don't even realize that, you know, when we're not doing this and we're not doing our regular jobs, we're also doing the work, because it's important. There's room in this movement, in this revolution, for everybody to do something. You might not be able to, do mutual aid. You might not be able to go to a protest because we're not all, physically mobile and able to do it. But you can share a conversation like this with people who you know, so they can be informed and enlightened about this information that they need. And, look, you can get connected to an organization so that you can be in situations where you can learn to trust people and to learn to be discerning of who not to trust and how quickly to get the fuck away from them, so that, they don't traumatize you. All of that is part of the struggle. And it is just, that's why it's called the beautiful struggle, because we get to have, even in the midst of difficult situations, we get to have moments like this. So,
and also, I like what Yane said about, and I think Amika said the same thing too. We have to develop a tough skin.
man.
I mean, there is nothing. The people aren't perfect.
Mhm.
Organizations are made up of people, and we had this program yesterday with the American Descendants of Slaves.
Oh, you had to bring it up.
Well, no, but I'm saying this for a reason.
I know.
What I'm saying is that we've been fractured too long as far as Black people go. We're not a monolithic people. So there's no way everybody's going to agree on this and agree on that and agree on this. There's room for ADOS. There's room for Black Lives Matter. And there's room for other things, because white supremacy is global. And so white supremacy is global, and we have to fight on all fronts. Everybody's not going to agree on the method on how to fight this. But what we can't do is come and tear down each other's house.
Yeah, we all have to agree that white supremacy is the enemy, not each other.
Not each other.
And if you come into the discussion thinking that we're the enemy, then yeah, that's already done.
I'm sorry.
So this is. Oh, go ahead, Yane.
I just want to say, like, there's room for the people who are in ADOS,
but
maybe not for the ideology. Maybe not for the ideology. I just gotta, and I also just gotta say, hey Zion. I just had to shout out Zion, but the ADOS. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that'll be another show.
Yeah, that is another show.
But this is the thing that I wanted to also say is that that we can be tearing down each other's house, and everybody's not going to agree on the method that we are supposed to use to fight white supremacy. But I also wanted to say, but this is the reason why Black Power media exists. We have to have these difficult conversations.
Right.
We have to be able to put our, to have these grown conversations without having to get personal and tearing each other down. Black Power media is about this. And so, I'm glad that these ladies came out today.
I'm extremely, extremely glad. And thank you all again for your time and your work and the continued work. So we love you. We appreciate y'all. And peace, folks. Friday, check out us at 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
We are going to be talking to Milton Alamadi, the editor-in-chief of Black Star News. And we're going to be talking about Somalia. We may be talking about Ethiopia and some other stuff that's going on the continent that is absolutely connected to our struggle here. You can catch us tomorrow night.
Right, tomorrow night
on Luqman Nation on YouTube, where we get into the cipher, where we go in there, shoot the shit, and just tell you what we think about what has gone on in the world.
Right. And also there is going to be a new podcast called The Waters of Healing, which is geared towards Black men. It's a podcast that will be hosted by myself and co-hosted by my cousin Ray Wilkerson, who is on the chat right now. And so this is our attempt at trying to provide a safe space for Black men to heal and to grow.
No, ladies, you cannot join in that. There, I said it. All right. Y'all, thanks so much. We appreciate y'all for joining us, folks. Thank you so much. If you are not a member of Black Power Media, fix that now. Join, like, share on YouTube, follow on Twitter. And look, we appreciate y'all. As the eternal chairman, Fred Hampton, always said, we say to you peace if you are willing to fight for it. And we got to fight for it, y'all.
And it ain't cheap.
You are terrible. Okay, let me see if I can get this thing right. Wait, okay, hold on. Okay.
How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. Had them on long before I dial up. How they came and they on top and I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Ho believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Todd told the valet pull the truck round. Push the line up that we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel